Welcome back to the Fear
and Beer podcast,
where we discuss all things Halloween Horror Nights, horror movies,
and just a little bit of beer.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Shamus.
Like scary movies.
Uh-huh.
Here's Johnny.
It's alive. It's alive. It's alive.
Did you miss me?
Aren't you drinking? I never drink. Why?
Before we get into tonight's episode, we want to remind all of those listening on Apple Podcasts to drop us a 5-star review. It helps us grow as a podcast and build our audience. If you're listening on Spotify or any other platform, follow us, and don't forget to share with friends and family who might have a little bit of the strange in them as well.
And while you're on those socials, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, be sure to find us, Fear and Beer Pod. Give us a like, share, and you can always message us. We love to interact with all you guys. So this week, we are doing 10 under-the-radar IPs that we think could translate into
that haven't been
good houses, that haven't been, that some I'm sure have been talked about, others maybe not, but these were not your typical, like, as we have on the TV, Conjuring. These aren't like the big heavy hitters, Scream. These aren't the ones, like people that have been like, why is this not, like, they're not the heavy hitters.
Like the big
that you would immediately
mainstream, movies or shows or whatever that like you would expect them to eventually do if they could get the rights to it.
Yeah.
Obviously, like with Scream, they've attempted it, I think.
Yeah, they tried to,
and it was converted to something else because of the rights issue that came up with it. But yeah, we're trying to avoid the big ones that everybody knows.
Yeah.
So
try to pick some,
I'm hoping that we picked a few, and we got at least a couple from suggestions. So.
Yeah.
We heard from a couple of you, so we know that we definitely think that these will speak to the audience. Who knows? Maybe not.
We're in the same boat with a lot of the people, and yeah, like we said, these aren't like ones that I don't know how else to word it, but they're not those heavy hitters. These are like those obscure ones that probably could, in my mind, translate to a fun house. Maybe scary, maybe some just more like schlocky.
We definitely didn't flesh this out and like broke down all the different like
scenes,
like
and
layouts
how the house would be,
and all the scenes and stuff, just because that would
and it's not
take a lot of time. And
and it's not our top 10. It's just 10.
No, these are just
so we
10.
could revisit this idea down the road with 10 more.
I'll admit that at least the ones that I'm bringing to the table are movies that I've watched and I really like, and I've hold a special place in my heart.
Well,
so
some of these movies I've watched and not liked, but I think would be a fun house.
Well, right, exactly. I mean, let's be honest. A lot of people don't like Freddy vs. Jason, which again, we have to change that.
Yeah,
you have to like Freddy vs. Jason.
Drop that stigma.
But so I think a lot of those types of movies that may or may not be fan favorites, maybe more cult classics, like a small group of people like them quite a bit, larger audience doesn't, but it could still turn out to be a pretty fun experience for a house. So hopefully these are agreed upon by the masses, and they side with us when it comes to what some of these options that we've bringing up. And I'm sure some of us will not and some of us won't, but it is what it is. I've got one that I think if they did this before another one, people would like lose their minds, so I'm interested to see what the response to this is, but we'll go from there. And these aren't in any particular order either.
No,
so
these are just,
before we get into it, just let you know that we're not ranking these. It's just these are 10 movie or IPs that we've come up with that we think would work well as a house that aren't the top of the lists for a lot of people.
So before we get into the fear, let's get into the beer. We got some funky ones tonight.
We're double dipping the Drecker.
We got back on the Drecker train.
Really liked the Drecker last week. It's the same can style art from that other one we did. I'm forgetting the name of it already, so sue me. But I found these ones over the weekend. So yes, I actually made it back to the liquor store, and
some
I'm not
beers.
Stealing beers from other people. Like, I'm actually providing the beers this week. It's been a while, so hopefully I can keep up with that a little bit. But so this one's called Blackberry Lime Brains. So we're talking about how we hate zombie movies. That's a lie. We don't hate zombie movies. We're just tired of zombies.
Boring.
But
been there, done that.
But we are going with a can. It's all about zombies. It's kind of nasty looking.
It's cool.
And it's a double fruit smoothie sour. So it's not...
Give the people a visual on the YouTube.
Yeah, so it's not like a milkshake IPA, but it's more of a sour ale, but it still has that smoothie, that fruit smoothie style shakiness. So it's gonna have some lactose in it. And on the can, what it says is it's got 3 different types of malts. It's got pale 2 row, wheat, and carafoam. I'm not an expert, so I don't really know what those are specifically, but they're 3 different types of malts. There are 2 different types of hops, Magnum hops and Hallertau Blanc. And then there's some flora in it, which is lactobacillus culture. Basically, it gives it that sour, that yeasty, that sourness. And there's house ale yeast. And then the gimmicks, which are blackberry, more blackberry, lime, more lime, sea salt, lactose, and vanilla beans. So it's going to give you that really thick, creamy,
like sour, and then
smoothie
coated
style
at the end or something.
Sour, but it's also an ale. So it's not necessarily like a pale ale. So it's more of an ale with a heavier malt base.
This has a lot of components in it.
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot to this. I've never had it. Again, this is probably the second Drecker I've had. Drecker, obviously, again, is out of North Dakota.
Yep, because we had the long-haired freaky dude.
Yeah, the long-haired freaky dude, that's what it was. And I actually spoke with the beer guy at the liquor store that we go to, and he's kind of like the guy that brings in all the different types of stuff, so he's kind of like a beer nerd like we are. And he was talking about it, and I said, yeah, Drecker, they're like out of South Dakota or North Dakota or whatever. He's like, yeah, man, I don't know. I don't know how we ended up getting it, but like I try to do like 1 case of each of different things, and I'm like, it makes sense because you don't want to get like a 3 or 4 cases of something from North Dakota
and it doesn't
nobody buys it.
Yep.
But these guys are good, so if you can find Drecker where you are, check them out. I don't know how well they're distributed across the country because our liquor place gets really weird out there stuff
there's
most
so
people
many
can't get.
So there's so many breweries too that like you never know what's going to pop up next.
I did notice that on Twitter we're getting called out. We're getting called out, but not doing our Florida Chicago beer swap. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
we'll
we gotta
get that trade
we
going.
We gotta
with
reach
the
out.
art of
We gotta reach out with the
Art of Partying.
Art of Partying.
Yeah.
Yeah, we gotta reach out to them and
it's tough.
Set up some sort of transfer.
We have hectic lives.
I know it's hard, but we'll figure something out. So if you guys are listening,
our boys,
keep up with us because we'll definitely figure something out to do with you. So let's crack these bad boys open and see what they taste like. I love sours, so I'm banking on a beauty here.
I love those smoothies too.
Ooh, it is heavy on the lime.
Tart, right?
It is heavy on the lime.
I'm expecting.
That is not the color I expected.
Oh, see, that's what I was thinking.
Wow.
That dark, muddy pomegranate look.
So you can get kind of 1 or 2 different ways here. So it's obviously the blackberry. Like we understand that. So that's that's where that's coming from.
That ending is just.
It's the deep red.
It's
like I'm
colorblind,
so I think that it's red.
Yeah, it's like a
so it's a deep.
It's like a purpley red.
Yeah,
it's
even the head on it's like kind of purpley to it too. It smells really good.
This is taking me back to those Warhead sours that we had.
Oh yeah, the Warhead sours that were like
punch you in the mouth.
Yeah.
Oh, let's
all right, well, I'm just gonna dive into it. Whoa! Sorry, I didn't mean to yell on the mic. Ooh. Oh man, that is strong.
That cuts back like behind you. See how thick it is at the end too. It's. Woo.
Oh boy. Yikes.
I can feel that still.
And this isn't a bad yikes because again I like sours. But
I can
sometimes
feel that behind my ears still.
It's like having a sour candy where you feel it in your teeth.
Yeah.
Like you feel it back here. Ooh. And it lingers. Wow, it lingers.
Let's see if
it's not a quick sour.
Let's see if she bites just as much as she does on the second time.
I believe it does. That's for sure. Wow. Good God, I gotta get a picture of this bad boy.
Ooh. Yeah, it does. Let's pour the rest of this in there. Some of it. It's so thick. Like at the end, like that's what she said. Like coming out, it's just like was sitting at the bottom, but it's like yogurt coming out. Which is not bad.
Yeah, and
I like that. That's that smoothie aspect of it.
That's that smoothie part of it, and that's totally fine. Like, I'm down for the smoothie stuff. Again, what's hard with, at least for me, what's hard with lactose beers is that you really have to get it at the right time. If it sits too long, obviously they can go bad because it's milk sugar, it's lactose. But at the same time, it also will change over time the flavor. Now, sours will typically get more sour, at least as far as I know. I don't know. I could be completely off base with that, and I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but you can definitely, it's hit or miss, and it's not necessarily the brewery or anything like that. It's just that if you get it at too long of a time, it can just feel off or taste off. But this is really, really good. So I don't actually know the date that it was canned, so I'm assuming these are pretty fresh.
Oh, so I got to interrupt. We have breaking news.
Oh no!
This is of course going to interrupt with our recording schedule. Tomorrow. Oh God, but I'm going to release this episode tonight now, so that way if we can sneak another episode in, we can.
Are they releasing another spec map
Tomorrow? Version 2.0.
God damn you!
Is supposed to be released by Horror Night Nightmares tomorrow.
Horror Night Nightmares, what are you doing to us?
So, what's today? Fucking Wednesday?
This is Wednesday.
We're recording on a Wednesday. I'm going to drop the episode fucking tonight now.
All right, well, yeah, so...
And we'll try and scramble
Happy
and get...
Thursday, everybody.
Yeah. So we're going to try and scramble and maybe get something going another night.
God.
I have a concert tomorrow night, but we can maybe record remotely or something.
Yeah, why don't we
do
like
thing.
a remote session?
We'll drop
make
that
it like
on...
a quick...
Yeah, we'll drop that on that third. So you're going to get 2 episodes this week. You're getting
Lucky sons of bitches.
You're getting Thursday and maybe Thursday.
Sorry, that was mean.
Well,
I shouldn't say that.
Wednesday night and Thursday/Friday.
Y'all
at
are
some
good
point.
people.
So
I'm the bitch.
we're coming at you hard this week. I guess.
Yeah, that'll be fun. I hope that actually happens.
Yeah.
I'm interested.
Tweeted it out, so
I'm interested
drop
to
it.
see
Breaking
what
news.
changes.
Yeah, I'm excited
Because it's quick.
I'm
That was
very
quick,
excited.
right?
And
I mean,
I wasn't expecting another one for a month or so.
Yeah, that's. I wonder what may have happened behind the scenes that
Maybe
made them
they're going to be
think
starting doing releases soon. They're going to start putting information out now.
potentially, or maybe everybody like listened to Fear and Beer and was like, they might be onto something with the haunting of Bly Manor, and we're like, shit.
Well, we'll see about those. But all right, let's get into this episode. I guess because of that news, we're not going to go quick or anything like that. But we might. We'll see. So let's jump in. We got 10 IPs that we think are quote unquote under the radar. And yeah, so let's just see where that takes us.
You want me to just go? You want to start with your top one?
Yeah,
or you want
I'll start with one, and like I said, I don't have them ranked or anything like that.
neither do I.
And this one is definitely out of left field a little bit, but just bear with me. And I will start it out with a little quote that I think will probably let you know where we're going with this property, and you should know after the first 2 words, and that is, remember the 5th of November. Of gunpowder treason and plot, I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot.
So you must be talking about the classic Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
Oh no,
We are
I'm sorry, I
talking
forgot. V for Vendetta.
V for Vendetta. Yeah, I know it's not a horror movie.
Doesn't
I know
have
it
to
doesn't
be
have
necessarily.
I know it's
The
not.
Weekend isn't a horror movie. I know how
Yeah,
some people
right.
are sensitive
Yeah,
because
we'll see
we
tomorrow.
had critical opinions about potentially The Weekend having a house, but he's not horror necessarily. So,
No, but
nor was Billie Eilish. But
yeah, but
so I think it's an interesting
that
IP.
realm.
It's an interesting pick.
I think there's things that work. I mean, there's definitely a lot
surprised
of
me a little bit when you said
psychological aspects of it.
Yeah, it's definitely got that. It's got that Search and Destroy-esque.
Yeah, Seek and Destroy.
Seek and Destroy. Seek and Destroy. It's got that
Metallica.
It's got that very overlord controlling civilization type feel to it. So it'd be an interesting house. It took me by surprise a little bit when you said it, because you're right, it's not a horror movie. It's not traditionally known as a horror film. It's more of a sci-fi action adventure type movie. I mean, I guess it's not really sci-fi, but in a way, well, no, it's not science fiction more so than alternative history. So I guess you can call it. I don't know. But there are a lot of elements to that movie that would work as a house. Obviously, the Guy Fawkes mask is iconic.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you've got your scare actor right there. Even though he's not really a scary character, he's the hero.
Yeah.
But you could do a lot of...
He has a villain-esque aspect to him.
I think my point is you can do a lot of non-scary scares, if that makes any sense, where it's like he's surprising you because he's coming out of different places,
He's taking his daggers and he's doing the V symbol, and it's the sparks are going and stuff like that.
It's definitely one of those IPs that would kind of be like an experience house more than anything else. Like,
Yeah.
you get to experience the movie up close.
Yeah. I mean, you have the alleyway mugging, like being in like the TV news station area where it's like overtaking
The BBC,
it and hacking through
not
the
the
systems,
BBC,
and
but like their version
of it. I think it would be fun. I mean, obviously you have the prison cell. Natalie Portman has to shave her head and stuff like that.
It'd be kind of cool to even walk through his like little lair with all
his
his
house,
all his
like
stuff.
the jukebox. Like, again, there's aspects. I mean, look at Ghostbusters. Look at Beetlejuice.
Right. I mean, people will say that, well, that's about ghosts and zombies and dead people and stuff. But
at the end of the day, the scares weren't necessarily like scares.
No,
Like they were jumps, and it was like people talking or like
right, but it was more experiencing
quips.
the movie scene.
Yeah.
Really up close.
Yeah, so it would just be more like that aspect of it, not as like the funny, goofy house, but the houses that have scares that aren't necessarily scary. It's
Right.
not anything horrific. It's just somebody
Right.
jumping out and doing the whole thing. It'd be
Agreed.
easy to cast because you just have half the guys in Guy Fawkes' masks, and I don't know. I think it would just be fun, and I was just rewatching it, so that was on my mind. I think it would at least be dark enough to constitute getting some.
It's an interesting pick.
style.
I mean,
of
it's
it.
definitely one that I think will be pretty. I don't want to say divisive, but I don't think some people will agree with it. But I think that it's definitely an interesting idea, interesting thought process. 'Cause, I mean, I'll admit all of the ones I'm bringing are horror movies in some way or sci-fi movies, but I think that's kind of like obvious. So it's kind of cool to kind of go out there a little bit with it.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Now
so,
I kind of wish I did go out there with one of my picks.
so now what we got?
So my first one, we were talking last week about how we don't really think a lot of creature features or gaiju movies would necessarily work as a house. But I was kind of mulling around in my head, and I think maybe we are a little too quick to discount all creature feature movies.
Yep.
So I'm going with one which isn't really a creature. I mean, it is a creature, but it's more of a down close to home creature because it's something a lot of people have at their homes, and it's Cujo. I looked up and down to see if they had done a Cujo house before, and they have not. Even in a Stephen King type house, they have not done a Cujo. They've done The Shining, I think, and that's pretty much it. So Stephen King, I've said before, obviously he's my favorite author, but he's ripe for the picking when it comes to various ideas for houses. I think there's so many easy picks that you can kind of go with when it comes to Stephen King. Obviously, The Shining is the biggest, well known. It's been done before at multiple parks, but I think there's a lot of stories within his canon that could be done if they could get the rights to it. And obviously, it's the popular one. Everybody wants to do it, which makes sense because Pennywise is a classic character, and he's just someone that works so well for all different kinds of mediums. But I think Cujo would be kind of fun because it is, out of all of Stephen King's stories, it's definitely one that people I think tend to forget about a little bit. Obviously, like I said, The Shining and It and a few of his other works are a little more poignant, a little more relevant because of the movies that have come out recently. Pet Sematary. So people don't think of Cujo quite as much, and you could obviously, I think, go Pet Sematary 2 with this pick, but I think that Cujo's a little more unique and a little more underrated. Because of the fact that it really does take place, for the most part, the movie does, for the important stuff, the important scenes, when it comes to like horror and scariness. It's you're confined to a car, and that's what makes that movie so tense and suspenseful, is that how are they going to get out of this? The car is dead. They can't get out of the car because the dog's going to just tear them to shreds. It's this big monstrous Saint Bernard who's obviously rabid or like sick. But I think what would make this house kind of relevant to a lot of people, like I said before, is a lot of people have dogs at home. So I've got a couple larger sized dogs. I don't know what I would be able to do if my dog was rabid and snapped and decided to murder one of one of us in the house or something like that. So I think that is kind of close to home in a sense that it would work well as a scare type thing,
and they would do great with the puppets. Like
exactly.
They've done awesome puppets with like American Werewolf in London house.
So we've talked about the puppetry that they've used. American Werewolf in London is a great example. So I think it's different enough from a werewolf movie or a werewolf story that it could be different and be interesting. And I think, like we said before, I think they can play with lighting a little bit with this, because obviously that movie takes place during the day as well as at night, and it's kind of over the course of time. So I think you could do some things with that. You can have the car itself, like the Ford Pinto, be like in one scene, but you could also walk through Cujo's territory, his land, the house that he lives in, the house that he and the owners that have them, and that other thing, and kind of make it like a Texas Chainsaw style house, but like without Leatherface. It's the dog, and I think there's a lot of things you can do with sound Obviously, you can do a lot of those like snarling sounds that they have in the movie, and like a lot of the stuff that they use with that. And then, of course, the puppets. And I almost think that like you could almost do sounds and exterior scares up until the final scene, which is you actually get to see the dog puppet.
Yep.
So it's a lot of like doors opening and snarling and stuff as he's trying to get you from that to the
That'd be
door,
big, yep.
and the sort of different things like that. Who knows? I mean, again, it's really obscure. I get it, and there's probably other properties from Stephen King's canon that people want to see first.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not. We're not saying that like we want to see these ones necessarily ahead of something else.
Yeah.
Obviously, we both want an It house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I didn't want to go It because that's everyone wants It. Like obviously, it's obvious. Like yes,
Of course.
yes,
Yeah.
of course
Give it
we
to
want
us.
It. But I love Cujo. I think Cujo's super underrated, both as a book and the movie. And maybe I'm crazy for thinking that, but
No, it's a great.
I
I think it would translate pretty well, especially like the way that they nail the puppetry of like past houses. They could do amazing things with this one.
right.
So let's jump into my next one. This one is
Can't be as bad as some of the ones that I've seen, but
okay. So movie wise, hot garbage served on a summer day. As a house, could be pretty interesting, and this was actually suggested as well to us on Instagram.
so this is from one of you guys too.
So we're thinking along the same lines, and that is Jason X, Uber Jason.
Okay.
This movie, I think, has the most kills out of any Friday the 13th movie with 25
for sure. I mean,
not
it's
counting
like,
all of the ones in the
it's
space
like a
station.
late '90s, mid early 2000s, like slasher movie. So of course it's going to be super high on the gore. And I mean, obviously we've both seen Jason X plenty of times. It's definitely not the best Jason movie. I don't remember from our rankings, it was done so long ago, if I ranked it dead last or not. So I don't want to speak out of turn. I have to go back and double check that list. But yeah. So regardless of how you feel about the movie, I think there's a lot of things you could do in a house. I mean, I think it's an interesting set.
It's fun because it would be like, I mean, you get that feel of Alien, like where you're on the spaceship. I mean, and I don't know how they would do some of these kills or like recreate them, but I remember someone got like their head frozen and smashed.
He shoved her head in the like, I think it was supposed to be like liquid nitrogen or something like that. Well, I mean, you could have like a cool like mask looking thing and like a scare actor walking at you with like her head frozen or whatever, and you know.
But something like that when he's like he destroys the virtual girls. I think he has them in sleeping bags and he's mashing them,
smashing them.
Yeah. So I mean, there's fun stuff, and then like it's just a way to have, you know, your. Of course, we said earlier these aren't the heavy hitters like Jason and Michael, and well, here we are talking about Jason, but
well, I mean,
in a sense,
the
it's like a
movie
little
isn't
different.
a heavy hitter because I mean, when you think Jason, you want to see Jason in Camp Crystal Lake and Jason with the classic hockey mask. Obviously, Jason X, he does not have the classic hockey mask.
Yeah.
It's obviously. I mean, granted, in the beginning of the movie, yes, you get the classic Jason for a hot minute, and then, you know, it changes quickly once he gets to space and it forwards in time. Because remember, it forwards in time like 1,000 years, 100 years, something like that.
Yeah.
So I think what would be cool about it is you could kind of do that thing where you first start in Camp Crystal Lake and it's normal present day, and you know there's Jason. Oh no.
Yeah.
And then like you transfer scenes and it forwards so many years into the future, and then magically, for whatever reason, you're on a spaceship now.
It's fun. It's just something.
And it's Jason.
It's something schlocky.
But again,
it's something different.
Right, and it's just to experience the movie up close. I know I've said it before where it's like that's not always the most fun thing,
Yeah.
but at least this movie, it's wacky enough and corny enough that I think it would translate well into a, you know what, let's just go balls to the walls when it comes to like the set dressing and the scare acting and the gore. It just works so well for that.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, I mean, it's the only slasher movie out of the big three, we'll call them, that I think fits that. A lot of the Halloween movies are taken very serious for the most part, and that's fine. I get it. Even Halloween Resurrection,
Yeah.
even Resurrection, you can say what you will, but that movie wasn't taken. Yes, it was. They took that very seriously. You could tell when they made it. That's why I don't hate that movie.
Yeah.
I've said before that's not least favorite. It's like my second least favorite Halloween movie.
Yeah.
But the point is that you can find ways to translate Jason X into a full-on 3D experience for people, and find ways to make it fun, even though the movie's pretty much trash.
Yeah, it's hot garbage.
I know. I'm sorry if you like Jason X. I get it. The cult following, don't come after us. I watch all the Jason movies during Halloween. Like, I get it.
But Jason X knows where it belongs.
Not exactly. I mean,
it knows what it is.
Right.
They did that on unreason. All right, so your next one.
So my next one is actually one I watched. I'm sorry. My next one is one I watched last night. Happened to see it on Shudder, and I don't know if it's recently added or not. I think it's much like Cujo was like Stephen King, one of Stephen King's more underrated properties. This might be one of John Carpenter's underrated movies. And no, it's not Assault on Precinct 13. It's The Fog. I think it was 1980, straight up just 80. I don't know. I have to double check on that, what year it came out. But don't confuse this with The Mist, which is a Stephen King story. This is The Fog. It's very similar, but in tone, completely different. Completely different monsters, obviously. But what I love about The Fog as a movie is it is it's simple. Very simple story, very straight to the point. This glowing fog comes over this small coastal town in California called Antonio Bay. And within the fog is the ghosts or the reanimated evildoers who were actually members of the town 100 years prior who were murdered for their gold, I think, if I can remember correctly. I mean, they basically wanted their gold back, which was turned into a gold cross by the priest of 100 years prior.
Yep.
And the priest's grandson is the one that gives it to him at the end of the movie. It sounds weird. If you haven't seen The Fog, I suggest you go watch it, especially if you're a John Carpenter fan, because it's worth completing his... If you're going to complete the
whole collection.
His collection,
yep.
You got to watch this one, because I think it's one of his better films after Halloween. But I think, obviously, one of the big things about Halloween Horror Nights that everybody loves and everybody talks about and everybody can't wait to get back into is The Fog. Yep. We love that smell of the fog.
Give me the fog.
So why not do a house that specifically dwells, for the most part, with that fog? Obviously, you can't make it so nobody can see.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of cool effects
you can the limits a little bit
with the fog. And when you're indoors, you can control it a lot better. So you can control the level of fog. You can control the lighting of it a little bit better, so it gives you that effect that you get in the movie. And then, of course, you can, from there, just kind of do your creature stuff, like your slasher creature-y style stuff. Kind of like how you get with Depths of Fear, where you have those weird underwater type creatures, because these guys are like murdered sailors, I guess, essentially. So granted, this is kind of like doing a Dead Man's Wharf type house. So maybe praying to the gods of HHN. Maybe they won't do it, just because of that fact they've already kind of done their own original take on it, but not really, because they haven't done the house yet. Yeah, hopefully, praise, fingers crossed. But I think the movie just would work well. There aren't really any characters that are easy remembered, I guess.
They're just kind of people. They're just characters.
Exactly. They're just characters. And what makes them so memorable is the fact that it's basically the Halloween 2 cast. I mean, it's, Tom Atkins is not in Halloween 2. He's in Halloween 3. But it's like all the key players in John Carpenter
moved him over to the next
basically in this.
Yeah.
Tom Atkins is in it. Jamie Lee Curtis is in it. Jamie Lee Curtis' mother, Janet Leigh's in it. Nancy Loomis, like basically John Carpenter.
They're people
in a nutshell.
It's like, hey, you guys want to make another movie?
But that's exactly it. They're just people, and you recognize them for who they are in real life. Then you care more about that than you do their actual characters. It is super goofy in certain ways, but it's also taken really seriously. And for what little the story is, it works really well. And I think that just the ambiance and the fog and all this different stuff that we love about Halloween would fit well into a house based on the movie.
It would be fun. It's doable.
Yeah, it's easy.
It's a good atmosphere.
It's super easy.
Yeah. So let's jump into my next one. Which, man, if you're gonna look at like my picks, they are
All over the place.
all over the place.
Mine are kind of all over the place.
And
too.
this is going back to my love for just like those like ridiculous like 70s, 80s, like crazy, way out there. But could it work as a house?
Probably. Maybe.
And that's Chopping Mall.
I love Chopping Mall. Why have they not done a Chopping Mall house?
It's just so ridiculous. You know, it would be hard to make, you know, the little robots like
it wouldn't be that difficult.
But like they could do it. And then it's just, I mean, somebody's shot with a harpoon. Somebody gets their head fucking
It's phenomenal.
blown up.
It's
People
phenomenal.
get shot with lasers.
It's
like
so good.
Imagine just being trapped in the mall and
Some
being
lady's
stalked
head
by
explodes
securities,
because of the laser beams.
little
It's so
security
cool.
robots. Like just the aesthetic of it. I mean, like 90s mall kid here.
Well,
like,
right, exactly. So you could
it fits to my
do that 80s mall aesthetic as the backdrop, and then you can definitely find someone to build some, you know, prop style robots that, you know, can be either moved by puppetry or even, I'm sure there's a way they could do like actual moving parts.
And again, like I know I'm not picking like the scary houses, and maybe that's like kind of like
but
that's just kind of what I like. Like they're fun for me. Like
Yeah.
I like the fun houses. I don't need to be scared by all of them because I know the originals are gonna be like
exactly,
the heavy hitters.
I'm with you there.
So I mean, if you look at last year with like Wicked Growth and Puppet Theater and stuff like that, like those are like those heavy hitters, scares and stuff like that, versus like what
Right.
Chopping Mall could be like that goofy, schlocky, like one-linery. And again, you know, the characters in it are just characters. So like you throw some 80s clothing on there and they're filled.
Right, and basically, I mean, that movie is more about the robots than it is about anything else. So that makes total sense.
So it would hit that sci-fi.
And I think you could also
little
you
laser
could,
sounds.
You
like,
could, you could get some of that horror comedy style, like
Yeah.
Ghostbustery type thing,
Yeah.
with this house, because it's obviously a ridiculous story.
Yeah.
It's a ridiculous movie, but it's still fun, and it would fit really well in the theme of, you know, let's just do fun, goofy horror schlock like Jason X would be. It's the same idea.
Yeah. So I mean, that's really all I had for Chopping Mall.
How much more can you add? Kill the
look,
robots in an 80s
killer
mall.
robots, killer security robots in an 80s mall. I mean, that's really all I got for us.
Nothing wrong with that. So my next one, which puts us at 6, is this 6? I think out of the 10.
I think so, somewhere around there.
I think it's 6. My next one is Suspiria. So I don't like to consider it a deep cut, even though it probably is, because, you know, the movies I watch are all for the most part deep cuts, or usually the ones that I find most appealing. Suspiria is a very, very colorful, and I don't mean that in like a good way. Well, let me reiterate that. It is good the way it's filmed. It's really, really bright and colorful, but at the same time, unbelievably gory, which is obviously, it's a 70s, 80s Italian. I don't know if you consider this giallo, because giallo is specific to certain tropes, and I guess it is. I mean, I guess you would consider it giallo, which is basically Italian for yellow, for those who don't know, but they're called giallo films. So I should have done my research. I'm sorry. It was directed by, I believe, Argento. I think it's an Argento movie. So it's really, really gory, but it's shot so well and so beautifully that it's like mesmerizing how bright and colorful it is, and how cinematic it is for being as brutal as it is. And I think that when you translate that to a house, obviously the story isn't going to translate very well. It's, you know, an American girl goes to Germany to this really famous dance school, and then for whatever reason, there's a masked killer you never see who is just picking off all these dance students one by one. And there's a big twist at the end and everything else. But what I think would translate well to a house is just that color palette and the ability to do the lighting.
The settings
and the
would
sound,
be beautiful.
The settings would be really beautiful, really abstract. Like, that's what I would expect, to kind of be like, wait, where are we? Like, what is this supposed to be? Like, have like really like strange angles, but with lots of color and lots of light and lots of gore, all mixed into one. And I think it would really, really well as a house. Again, I don't really know how you translate the story very well, but I don't think you need it.
If you can get enough
if
scenes,
it's just visual.
Yeah, if you get enough scenes and visuals, like, does the story really matter? does it have to be there?
No, it doesn't. And you can
Does Chopping Mall have a story?
yeah, I mean, robots get turned on and they become evil and they kill people. It's a pretty good story. But yeah, I think this would work just visually. It'd just be a stunningly visual house that might work pretty well.
Yeah.
I just don't know how well it would draw people because like a lot of people don't know this movie.
Yeah.
I know that. I think the deep cut of our audience probably recognizes this movie, or most of our audience probably knows this movie. But people that listen to us are like us, where they like do deeper dives into the genre, and a lot of people that don't do deep dives into genre won't really know much about Suspiria. Maybe now they will because there was a remake done, which I don't think I've seen the remake. I don't believe I have. I've only ever seen the original a bunch of times, so I don't know how good it is or how bad it is, but maybe from that people will recognize it. But I would rather them focus more on the 70s, the late 70s, early 80s version of it, like the original Italian. Give me that, because it's obviously shot on real film and it's just, it looks so much better than what's done on digital nowadays. But yeah, that was my next one. So I think we're on to 7.
Yep.
8.
So this one, I'm definitely like catering to my needs, and that is now I'm on to like my sensory style houses that I just can't get enough
Nothing
of.
wrong with that.
So I know there's parts of this movie that are let's just say unacceptable to say the absolute least. There's parts of this movie that are no good. So we were just going to avoid those aspects, and I'm going to focus on just the stuff that would be
Well, now I'm really interested.
and that would be the 1997 Jack Frost movie.
Oh god, yeah, that's true.
So it's like the serial killer Jack Frost turns into this
Becomes a snowman.
Evil snowman.
It's basically
He gets into like a crash, and he turns into the snowman, and then everyone's like, oh, he's dead, but he's not, and he starts just killing people as the snowman.
right. Wasn't there like a kids movie about this too though?
So there was also Jack Frost with, I forget the name of the actor, but it's not Michael Keaton.
No, is it Dennis Quaid? No.
I
Dennis Leary? No, I have to double check.
you can check that one, but
yeah, there's like two. Like, don't get confused.
Yeah.
Like, there's two different
This
movies.
is like
there's
the
like a
bad
kids
version.
family movie,
Yeah.
and then there's like a murder.
this isn't the one where like the
Chucky-style
kid's
snowman.
dad dies and he like
Right? Yeah.
inhibits the body of a snowman, and it's like a feel-good family story. This is like the bad horror movie Jack Frost. I mean, somebody gets an axe shoved down their throat. Someone gets a face full of ornaments. A icicle impaling is like a must. Someone gets decapitated by a sled. I mean, this is stuff that like...
Oh yeah, it's like
It was a toss-up, honestly, between this and Silent Night, Deadly Night. But I figured this would have been a little bit more under the radar.
Yeah,
which is what we're definitely going for.
100%.
And again, this is a Century style house. And like, imagine like how when we walked through either Graveyard Games with all like the little little dolls, or Us when you walk through all the mannequins and like there's some actors, there's some not.
oh yeah, just all the snowmen and stuff.
A bunch of snowmen, and it would be like the scene from like The Office where Dwight builds a bunch of snowmen and you're walking through the cult and you don't know which one's jumping out, and sometimes the best snowball is the one not thrown. So like none of them actually move, but like that feeling of dread that like you get,
You're waiting for it to happen. Yeah.
maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but there's a little room right there. I mean, you could have the whole crash scene, and pretty much every room would just be a snowman killing somebody. And it's just so outrageous that I think the creative team would have a lot of fun being able to sculpt some of that crap and really get it going. But yeah, that's my that's Jack Frost right there for you for a nice little house. Want me to go into? Actually, you can go.
Let me do my last one.
Yeah,
I've
do
only
your
got
last
I've
one.
only got 4, and then you can finish it off
Yeah.
with the 2 that you have. So I'm picking one, and like I said earlier, I do have one where I think that if they did this before a different movie, people would lose their minds, and with reason. I get it, but I didn't want to pick that one because, again, much like other ones on this list, we felt like I wanted to be underrated with it. I wanted to be different. I didn't want to do the ones that people have been asking for the last 10, 15 years, however long it's been. But it is Critters. A bunch of basketball-sized little aliens come down to Earth, and they start, just raising hell. And obviously, you know, when you hear that, you go, "What about Gremlins?" As Jimmy would say. I get it. Yes, Gremlins. Again, like it, totally would. You know, we want a Gremlins house. We're as surprised as you are that they haven't done one. It would take total sense. It would make total sense. You know, that this could be that Ghostbusters, Beetlejuice, fun, goofy house. But because of that, you know, and because of everyone's going to be like, what about Gremlins? I went with Critters because I think Critters is a close second to the Gremlins franchise. I think that it's for, you know, mid-'80s, you know, creature feature type stuff. But rather than being like straight up horror, this is obviously more, you know, horror, dark comedy, funny. Oh look, he's destroying an ET doll, like that type of stuff. So I think that like this could kind of be like that Ghostbusters / Killer Clowns from Outer Space type house where it's lighthearted to a point. Obviously they're doing awful things to human beings, but it's funny because it's super sci-fi, super goofy. And the puppetry for like this movie is really, really good. I love the way the critters look. I think they're really cool with the big open mouths and the teeth and stuff like that. So
bunch of teeth.
So again, another movie where if you haven't seen Critters, if you're like a Gremlins diehard like Jimmy, and you haven't seen Critters, you need to go watch Critters because it will definitely fit that need to see like a Gremlin style movie. Because outside of those two movies,
it
really
scratches that itch.
There aren't a whole lot of other ones that are good. Like Ghoulies maybe, but it's a very steep drop in quality from Critters to Ghoulies. So I just think it would be a fun house. That is, again, not a whole lot to talk about because it is what it is. I understand that we're going to get Gremlins before we get Critters, but I still think that once they do Gremlins,
it would be,
and it's shown that it can work, Critters might be the next one.
Yeah, don't have to go to Gremlins 2. Go to Critters. Yep. So for the last two, number one, well, first of the last two, so number 8, I guess. Quarantine. I know that's a word that we've said too many times in the last couple years.
That's too close to home, man. Too soon.
But I think this could work as a house, and the way that I envision it, if you're not sure of the movie, it's not COVID related. It's definitely more like biological.
Quarantine's more just like a biological.
They pretty much
thing.
the I forget the organization, CDA or whatever. They quarantined this one apartment building because one girl's dog had rabies. It bit somebody, and it was a virus that got out. So essentially, somebody stole a virus from a secret lab, and they're pretty much a host or starting this host in this apartment complex, and they lock everybody in there, and one by one, they kind of contract this rabies variation. The end is this really creepy night vision shot. It's it's a found footage style movie, so it's got a little bit of shakiness in there. But I think there's a lot of good scares throughout that time of somebody looking normal and then running towards you and appearing different. You could do some kind of mirror work there. And I think it would be cool is like if the ending, we've seen stuff done in black and white before where all the characters and stuff like that and the costumes are all painted black and white. What if like the ending of this house was done in some sort in like a night vision style where the costumes and the characters were all like that lime greeny black, and you have like that little spotted lights going, so that it gives you that look like
the effect of
you're walking in night vision right now. So like it just gives you that weird aesthetic, because that's really the last bit of the movie where it's spoilers. So you go in there and it's like this old man walking around creepy naked and like dirty underwear or whatever he's in, and he starts like rifling through papers, and like he doesn't know that they're watching him. They're using the camera to look through and see him, and he kind of spots him. They drop the camera, and he starts eating somebody, and then at the end is the poster where the girl's getting pulled away in night vision. I think it would just be a fun thing, and there's like cops and firefighters, so like you can have the generic characters, you can have the generic firefighter or whatever, and I think it would just, I think if you could nail like that night vision look as a visual, I think it could do really well. It would be fun. It would be fun, at least. And then we'll just finish this episode off with something that was sort of at Horror Nights last year, in a very small factor. If you went to go see the why can't I think of the Nightmare Fuel show?
Oh, Nightmare Fuel.
Duh. And that would be My Chemical Romance.
Yeah,
who says we hate artists?
We're allowed
artists.
to do musical one.
And this would specifically be a Black Parade house, obviously.
Yeah, well, it's their darkest of, like,
it's dark.
Not dark, but
the video aesthetics, and that's this is what people are doing with the other the Billie Eilish, The Weeknd, and stuff like that.
Right.
If there's something cool in a video format, if there's something good enough there that you can like flesh out a story out of the characters and stuff like that, then like, okay, sure, you got me. And also, I'm an emo kid, so like, why wouldn't I want a My Chemical Romance house?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those artists where you're like, yeah, let's see what they can do. I mean, like, again, I was willing to give Billie Eilish a chance, and I'm willing to give The Weeknd a chance. I'd be just as willing to give.
Yeah, but like the video does set up a really cool like aesthetic dystopian future.
Yeah,
they're in the Black Parade.
It's called the Black Parade.
It's all the skulls. It's very like Day of the Dead almost. They have like what almost looks like as like dictator style jackets, like the black and white buckles. You got the dude in the hospital bed with like the blacked out eyes and kind of walking up and stuff like that. It's something that if you really dove into it, you could create a story in that world. It doesn't necessarily have to be the actual music video or with the lyric. You could do something in that world and play around with it. That would be a cool aesthetic. And obviously you can have their music in there in some capacity, but you can do like that slowed down, like the like weird versions of it. And you could play around with it. I think there's enough there. And it's an IP that's like, I want to say under the radar because it's not a movie. It's not something, if you said musical artists, they might, start creeping up on the list there. But just IPs, you might not be thinking about it. And I figured might as well throw a little curveball in there at the end.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for tonight.
We had a big bomb drop on us.
We had a big bomb dropped on us.
Stupid episode started.
But I'm not sure when you're going to be hearing this episode, but you'll be hearing it. That's for sure.
Yeah, so whenever you're listening to this, hi.
Yeah. So until next time, this is Nick.
And this is Shamus.
Happy haunts.
This is cursed. Cursed. It's got a death curse.
It's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare.
And again, I would just like to thank Vampire Stepdad for letting us use his music for our intro and outro music. So if you would, just go check him out. Spotify, Facebook. Again, that is Vampire Stepdad.